You think everything is fine. You think your relationship has finally found its rhythm after those first intense months, maybe even years. You've settled into comfort, into routine, into what you believe is security. You tell yourself this is what stability feels like, that this is the reward for all the effort you both put in. And then it happens. Out of nowhere, she starts doing something that makes no sense, something that turns your peaceful life into a battlefield. The woman you thought you knew so well begins to feel like a stranger, and you're left standing there, confused, wondering what just happened to the person you believed would always be on your side. Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. Every woman does this. Every single one. It doesn't matter how sweet she was in the beginning, how much she said she loved you, how perfect your relationship seemed on the surface. At some point, usually after months or years when you least expect it, she's going to start testing you. Not those cute little tests you remember from the dating phase. This is something deeper, something primal, something that will determine the entire future of your relationship. And here's the really disturbing part. She doesn't even know she's doing it. This isn't conscious. It isn't planned. It isn't some manipulative strategy she read about online. This is her subconscious suddenly waking up and asking, wait, who is this man I'm with? Is he really as strong as I thought? Or have I been fooled? And once that question enters her subconscious mind, the testing begins. If you don't understand what's happening, you're already lost. Because these tests aren't about surface issues. They're not about the specific thing she's complaining about. They're about something much bigger, something that lives deep in her instincts and has been shaping human relationships for thousands of years. Why doesn't this happen from day one? Why does it start suddenly after you've been together for a while? Because in the beginning, you were a mystery. You were unpredictable. You had your own life, your own priorities, your own frame. She met you in your natural element, doing what you loved, living on your own terms. That's what drew her in. But as time passes, as you get comfortable, as you start prioritizing the relationship over yourself, something shifts. You become predictable. You become safe. You become attached. And that's when her subconscious starts questioning whether you're really the strong man she thought she was with, or just another weak man pretending. This is the brutal truth about how women see men. There are only two categories in her subconscious mind: strong men and weak men, dominant men and submissive men, leaders and followers. There's no middle ground, no gray area, no sometimes strong, sometimes weak. You're either one or the other. And every single interaction, every response to her tests is data her subconscious uses to categorize you. The strong man, the dominant man, has clear boundaries. He knows who he is. He doesn't need her approval to make decisions. He's not afraid of conflict. He's not afraid of her emotions. He's not afraid of losing her because his life is complete with or without her. When she tests him, he doesn't even realize he's being tested because maintaining his frame is simply who he is. The weak man is the opposite. He needs her approval for everything. He's terrified of making her upset. He'll compromise his values, his boundaries, his very identity just to keep the peace. He thinks being understanding means being weak. He thinks love means sacrifice. He thinks keeping her happy is his job. And every time he bends, every time he compromises, every time he chooses her emotions over his integrity, he confirms what her subconscious suspects. He's weak. I saw this play out with a colleague of mine. During the first year of his marriage, he was still himself. He went to the gym, hung out with friends, pursued his hobbies. His wife would occasionally complain, but he'd handle it calmly. "I need this for my well-being," he'd say. And that was that. But slowly, the complaints increased. "You care more about the gym than me. Your friends are more important than our marriage." And instead of maintaining his position, he started compromising. First, he cut his gym days from 5 to 3, then to 2, then to whenever she was busy. Within 2 years, he'd gained 30 pounds, lost touch with his friends, and his wife was disgusted by him, not because of the weight, but because he'd become weak. He'd failed every test by giving in, and her subconscious had reclassified him from strong to weak. Here's where it gets really controversial and really hard to swallow. The more attached you become, the weaker you appear. I know this goes against everything you've been taught about relationships. Show her you love her. Make her your priority. Happy wife. Happy life. But think about it. When you first met her, when she was most attracted to you, were you attached? Were you needy? Were you reorganizing your entire life around her? No. You were independent. You had options. You could take her or leave her, and that's exactly what made you attractive. But now you can't imagine life without her. Now you need her validation to feel good about yourself. Now her mood determines your mood. Now her happiness is more important than your own. You think this is love, but what it really is weakness. And her subconscious knows it. Her subconscious can smell it like fear. And once she smells that fear, that neediness, that attachment, the testing intensifies. Let me explain what happens in her subconscious when she senses weakness. This is not a conscious thought. She doesn't wake up thinking, "I'm going to test my man today." No, it's deeper than that. It's primal. It's biological. When her subconscious detects weakness, it goes into what I call check mode. It starts provoking, pushing boundaries, creating drama. All to answer one question. Is he really weak, or am I wrong? This isn't malicious. This isn't evil. This is hardwired into female nature. Throughout human evolution, women needed to be with strong men for survival. Weak men meant death for her and her children. So her subconscious developed this testing mechanism to constantly verify the strength of her mate. In modern times, the stakes aren't life and death, but the programming remains. The testing starts small. She'll question a decision you made. She'll create drama over something insignificant. She'll withdraw affection to see if you'll chase. She'll push a boundary to see if it's real. And she's watching, always watching, to see how you respond. Do you stand firm or do you bend? Do you maintain your frame or do you enter hers? Do you remain calm or do you get emotional? Most men fail these tests without even knowing they're being tested. She creates drama and you try to solve it logically. You think if you just explain better, if you just help her understand, the problem will go away. But the problem isn't the surface issue. The surface issue is just the test. The real question is, will you maintain your frame, or will you be pulled into her emotional chaos? Then comes the cycle that destroys relationships. She provokes. You give in to keep the peace. She loses more respect and runs away. Maybe to her mother's house, maybe to a friend's place, maybe just emotionally. You panic and chase. You apologize, promise to change, beg her to come back. She returns, but not because you've won her over. She returns because the test isn't complete. She needs to see how much control she really has. And the cycle repeats, each time making you weaker, more desperate, more controllable. Eventually, she doesn't even recognize the man she once admired. She sees someone who flinches at conflict, who avoids truth, who's lost his edge and swallowed his voice just to avoid upsetting her. She sees a man who bends every time she leans. And here's the worst part. She starts resenting you for the very things she once begged you to do. She said she wanted more time with you. Now she complains you're always around. She said she wanted more emotional openness. Now she sees you as soft. She said she wanted you to listen more. Now she sees you as passive. The very things she claimed to want were never really about you changing. They were tests, and you failed. But if you think walking away or giving up is the answer, you're still missing the deeper point. This isn't about escaping women. This is about transforming yourself. Every test she throws at you is an invitation. a brutal, sometimes painful invitation for you to step back into your power. Not power over her, not domination, but the power of presence, boundaries, purpose, and clarity. The masculine power that doesn't crumble in the face of emotion. The power that doesn't collapse when love gets messy. The power that can hold space for her storm without becoming the storm. Women crave that energy, not because they're manipulative or cruel or impossible to please, but because their biology is searching for safety through strength. When you provide that strength, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you become the anchor in her ocean. And when you abandon that strength, when you become the one drowning in her tides, she will either pull away or pull you down with her. There's a saying I often come back to. A woman doesn't leave a man because he makes her feel unloved. She leaves because he makes her feel unsafe. And safety isn't just about protection from the world. It's about the psychological safety that comes from being with a man who knows who he is. A man who doesn't need her approval to breathe. A man who leads with calm certainty, even when she's spinning out emotionally. A man who can take her chaos without collapsing. That kind of man is rare, and the world has trained you not to be him. You were taught to be nice, to always agree, to avoid conflict, to make her your everything, to just be yourself. But no one told you that your self was never developed, that your masculine core was smothered by decades of messaging that taught you love is obedience, that strength is toxicity, that leadership is control. So when you finally got the girl, you did everything you were taught. You gave up, you got soft, you got passive, you stopped leading. And then you wondered why she stopped respecting you. But here's the good news. You can reclaim that core. You can reforge the strength she once saw in you, not through aggression, not through manipulation, but through grounded, quiet power, the kind that says, I see you, I hear you, but I will not betray myself to please you. That kind of man doesn't yell, he doesn't chase, he doesn't break down when she tests him. He simply stands, breathes, holds his center, and speaks truth without apology. You want to know what happens when you become that man. The tests stop, or rather they become fewer, lighter, less desperate. Because her subconscious feels what it's been looking for all along. A man who cannot be moved by emotional wind. A man who is oceanally sovereign. That's the word. Sovereign. Not dependent, not reactive, not easily controlled. Sovereign. If she comes at you angry, you don't meet her anger with anger or cowardice. You meet it with calm, not passive silence, but calm clarity. I won't be spoken to like that. If she withdraws affection to control you, you don't beg or pout. You continue your life, with or without her warmth, because your self-worth isn't tied to her emotional approval. If she questions your choices, you listen with openness, but you do not change course unless your own values tell you to. You don't flex for comfort. You flex only for truth. And when you start living like this, not performing strength but embodying it, something changes. She stops looking at you like someone she needs to fix and starts looking at you like someone she can finally relax around. Her testing turns to trust. Her chaos turns to peace. Her tension turns to surrender. And that, ironically, is when true love begins. Not love based on neediness or performance, but love built on respect and polarity. Let's be honest. This version of love is rare. Most people never experience it. They bounce from one relationship to the next, repeating the same patterns, chasing the same high, crashing into the same disappointment. Because no one taught them that love without respect isn't love, it's dependence. And respect isn't earned through obedience. It's earned through presence, leadership, and boundaries. Every man will be tested. Every man will be pulled. Every man will be challenged to trade his power for peace, and the world will cheer you on when you do. It will say, "Good job, you're such a nice guy. You're such a good husband. You're so emotionally available." But beneath the applause, there's a woman quietly pulling away, feeling something she can't explain. A loss of safety, a loss of polarity, a loss of desire. So what do you do with this knowledge? First, stop blaming her. This isn't about her being difficult. It's about you being unaware. Second, stop blaming yourself. You were never shown the map. No one taught you the rules. But now you know. And that means you have a choice. You can continue being the man who bends, who breaks, who chases, who explains, who apologizes for being masculine. Or you can become the man who leads. Not with force, but with gravity. Not with fear, but with presence. Not to control her, but to control yourself. Because when a woman tests you, what she's really asking is, can you hold me, even when I can't hold myself? Can you stay centered when I'm not? Can you be my rock, not my mirror? And most men crumble under that weight. But the rare few, the sovereign ones, they carry it with quiet strength. They don't pass the test because they studied the questions. They pass because they became the answer. Most men don't realize that masculinity isn't something you perform. It's something you remember. It's not about being loud. It's not about domination. It's about grounded presence. The kind of presence that walks into a room and doesn't need to speak, because everything about him already says, "I know who I am." That kind of man doesn't seek approval. He gives direction. He doesn't demand respect. He embodies it. He doesn't beg for love. He attracts it by the gravity of his self-respect. But society has conditioned you to forget. From classrooms to boardrooms, you were taught to sit down, be polite, don't speak too much, don't challenge authority, don't lead too boldly, don't shine too brightly. You were trained out of your nature, and now you wonder why you're unfulfilled, why women lose interest, why life feels like a slow death by compromise. Here's the truth no one will tell you. Women don't fall out of love with men. They fall out of admiration. And once admiration dies, love becomes duty. The fire becomes obligation. She stays out of guilt, not desire. She touches you out of pity, not passion. And slowly the relationship becomes a graveyard of what used to be vibrant. The laughter fades. The respect corrodes. And no amount of date nights, vacations, or communication exercises can resurrect what was killed by the absence of masculine polarity. Do you want her respect back? You have to stop chasing her and start chasing purpose. You have to stop fixing the relationship and start fixing your direction. Because no woman can admire a man who orbits her. She wants to be the moon to your world, not the sun of your universe. She wants to follow a man who knows where he's going, not a man who waits for her emotional forecast before taking action. And yet, every day, you betray this truth. You over-explain. You apologize for having needs. You ask for permission to lead. You shrink when she gets upset. You hand over the steering wheel of your life, hoping it will make her love you more. But what you don't see is that every time you abandon your mission to manage her mood, you bleed out a little more of the masculine essence she was drawn to in the first place. You don't lead by force, you lead by example. You don't need to dominate her emotions, you need to master your own. Because the man who has control over himself cannot be controlled by anyone else. And in a world full of emotionally reactive, approval-seeking men, self-control is the new superpower. It is what separates kings from servants, leaders from followers, masculine men from compliant boys. And yes, it will cost you. It will cost you the comfort of being liked, the temporary approval of the world, the applause of the mediocre. It might even cost you the relationship that's built on your weakness. But what you gain is priceless. Your spine, your clarity, your purpose, your power, and eventually the right woman who doesn't want to tame you, but to stand beside you as you lead. She won't test you to break you. She'll test you to witness your strength. And when she sees it, when she feels that unshakable calm in you, she'll finally relax. Her anxiety will soften. Her resentment will dissolve. Her chaos will settle. Because she's found what she was really looking for all along, a man who can hold the storm without becoming it. You were never meant to be her emotional caretaker. You were meant to be her emotional container, not the sponge that absorbs her moods, but the vessel that holds her safely through them. That's the sacred masculine role. And when you embody it, you don't just transform your relationship, you transform her. She becomes softer, more radiant, more open, more feminine. Because you, without saying a word, gave her permission to finally let go, to stop fighting, to stop leading, to stop protecting herself. She can now surrender, not out of weakness, but out of trust. The kind of trust only a grounded man can evoke. But none of this begins with her. It begins with you. Your habits, your beliefs, your rituals, your discipline. Are you building a life that commands respect even when no one is watching? Are you keeping promises to yourself? Are you chasing goals bigger than her moods? Because if not, you'll always fall back into orbit. And once you orbit her, she will resent the gravitational burden of carrying your masculine void. This is why many women leave good men, because they're not really men. They're boys who mistake niceness for love, politeness for leadership, compliance for connection. But what she really wants, what every feminine core longs for, is the man who holds his frame, who stays rooted, who protects without needing praise, who leads without needing permission. And that man isn't born, he's built brick by brick, day by day, through choices that few are willing to make, through discomfort that most are unwilling to face, through the painful dismantling of the lies you were told about love, leadership, and masculinity. This is not about dominance. This is not about manipulation. This is not about returning to some cartoonish version of manhood. This is about remembering what was once sacred, the calm, the courage, the clarity, the deep masculine presence that doesn't flinch when tested, doesn't beg to be understood, and doesn't fear walking alone if it means standing in truth. You may lose her in the process. You may lose others. But if you lose everyone while reclaiming yourself, you've won. Because you've finally broken the pattern. You've finally stopped performing weakness as a strategy for love. You've finally stepped into the manhood the world tried to bury. And from that place, everything changes. She feels it. Others feel it. You don't even have to speak. Your silence carries more gravity than your words ever could. Because now, you're not trying to prove anything. You've already become it.